Okay, so I'm back at it, and so I thought I'd first, this week, I'd answer a question from one of the commenters about how much time I'm actually spending on this project. Well, this project is going a little slower because I have a lot of things around the property here that have to be tended to that I've left go for the last 3-4 years while I was working on some other projects for customers. So with those projects, I spent roughly 30 hours a week working on about 6 hours a day, 5 days a week, and that's I kept at it pretty well, kept the schedule pretty good. This one's going a little slower because I have a lot of other things to do, and so it's approximately 20 hours a week, and each video represents 2 weeks, so that's about a 40-hour period. And there's 9 episodes so far. This will be 10. So you can just do the multiplication and get an idea as to what the hours are, as to how much time I've been spending so far on this project. Anyway, I'll get you turned around here, and we'll take a look at where I'm going from here. Right, so I've finished construction on this side to stabilize this side, finish that member up. Still got a little bit, I've got to cap this up and weld this up over here. On this side, as you can see, I've been sneaking around painting it as I went. And I finished this all up on this side over here. So that's all completed. And this is all welded up down around here. So this is on the car solidly welded to the frame rails now. But this is where I'm at, and this is where I'm going to pick up this week. I'm going to finish out this and then hopefully get the fenders put back on and weld them on permanently to the back sections here. And then we'll see what happens from there. Okay, so I've got this fender spliced together with the rear half up here. I had to make a cut here because there was a little trap metal there. I had to release it and re-weld it there. I also had to cut away the El Camino rim and take and put my own rim in here in order to blend it out, because the El Camino had a little wider wheel opening, a different angle of attack, so it was about a 1/2 inch out over here after I got this all welded together. So I've got that blended in down to the bottom. Over here at the top, I've added to the back of the fender over here, and then also to the door in order to create this transition to make that blend in similar to the way that it does on the Buick. There's a little upstand on the Buick door like that, but I was going to cut it off the Buick door, and I thought it's only a little piece of sheet metal, a couple of pieces of sheet metal, and I could probably do a better job to customize, fit it, than to try and retrofit something else. At any rate, that's where I am with that. Still got to add a small tab on the bottom side here to lock the bottom of the fender in there. We've gone ahead and I'm making a bracket to tie into these 2 holes here. I had originally thought that these 2 holes lined up with the radiator core support, but in fact these are just holes to bolt in the old fender back, which I cut up to make this rail a little stiffer. And then they had 2 more holes on that piece that lined up through one up the top and at the bottom over here of the radiator core support, and that's how this side was kind of secured over here. It's pretty stout right now, but I'm just going ahead and made a simple bracket. Basically, it's just an L bracket to tie it to the front. It'll bolt to the fender, and then it'll just screw to the radiator core support. Anyway, that's what I'm up to, and after I'm done here, obviously, I'll have to rinse and repeat on the other side. All right, I just thought I'd throw this nose piece on here quickly just to make sure that the spread on my fenders was right before I make any more bracketry. I went ahead and I started to weld up this side, mend it in, but I'm running low on welding gas. And like a dum-dum, I didn't get it last week when I should have gone out and got it when it was starting to run out. And now I'm kind of stuck because my truck's broke down. It's probably best that I didn't, because it probably would have broke down on the road instead of here on my property. But anyway, so that might put a little bit of damper on my progress on this thing. Anywho, I just thought I'd show you this, what it's starting to look like. Well, it's been a couple days messing around with this, but thanks to YouTube, you know, you can find pretty much everything you need to know about these old trucks. You know, they had a run from like 80, I think it was 88 to 98. So there's a lot of videos on what went wrong traditionally with these things. One of the big things that I guess went wrong with them, that you know, is the ignition switch. So that was what the problem was. I wasn't getting any lights on the dashboard. It would turn over, but it wasn't catching fire. So I had no idea where to start. So start with YouTube and just sit there and see if you can find somebody else with the problem. And found a guy who basically took the shroud off around his ignition switch, and then he started fooling around with the key and pushing on this connector right here until he finally got the lights to come back on and fired up. I said, surely that's not as simple as all that. So I came out and tried the same trick, and sure enough, that's what it was. I got the thing fired up. At least I was able to get it up off the property in the back and get it drove in here to the shop. And so I've switched all that out, which is a nice little day's job of pulling all the stuff out, the steering column and all that good stuff. The other thing that I've been meaning to do for a while, because you know, these trucks, they've got a few miles on them. The thing that happens with them is these doors give up. Usually it's the driver's door. You'll see them all, they're all sagged. It's way too heavy for the pins or something over the years. So this has got over 250,000 miles on it. So it had that problem, and it was really annoying to try and get this thing to shut. The first thing I did was I changed the latch. Turns out that the latch was quite a bit of the problem, but the door pins were also an issue. So I've got those. That was quite a job getting those out. So had to rope it up with the hoist, pick the door up with some ropes, so I could pull it away without having to unplug all the wiring and everything, and then install the new pins. Tedious, but rewarding when it shuts like that. I'll tell you right now, it hasn't shut like that since I've owned the car or truck, which is about 4 years. One of those things you just never get around to. Anyway, so next task is try and cart this bottle up to the gas place and get some welding gas so I can get back on the main topic over here. Anyway, so it's looking like right now. I'll get back with you. All right, so I managed to go get my gas and all that good stuff, my welding gas, and get back on it. So I was out on the Buick getting the rear quarter panels cut, so I get these rear flares. I've already cut off one side, the Camino flares. They're a much flatter flare. It goes straight across like this, as opposed to arcing up, and it also has this section that cuts in. It is a little bit bigger on the Regal stuff over here. You could see this is quite a bit larger, and what that's going to do is I'm going to fade this out from the full width that you see under here, and then it's going to roll up over here to almost flat, and then come back down where it's visible, so that it'll allow all of this room here for tire clearance. Should I decide to get wider wheels and tires, which is probably going to be my aim if I can manage it. Right now, all the wheels and tires are the same size. So anyway, that's the passenger side. On the driver's side, I've already trimmed and clecoed the piece end, and you could see that it's going to be more conducive to tire clearance right off the bat. So it sticks out beyond the tire nicely. So I'll come in. I still have to cut out the inner wheel tub all the way up to this point right up here, and that way, and I'll bring it back into the body up here, and this will just be a single layer thick right over here. So it'll give the tire and wheel all of this space to come up into, and hopefully that'll be enough. At any rate, I just wanted to mock that up before I quit for the week here. Early next week. I've got all my stuff that I need to keep warm here. My kerosene. It's going to be really cold next week. Got the hood inside. Probably be trying to fit that up next week too. See how that goes. Get back on the front and finish up the bracketry that I need to. Hold up the bumper, hold up the grill, and all that jazz. But I was very curious. Well, it was a good day today. Temperatures were good outside, so it was a good day to get out there before it got cold again to cut those wheel arches out of the Buick. And so anyway, I was curious about that anyway. It looks good, at least to me. And we'll move on from here. All right, so I've been welding this morning, getting this fender amended to the El Camino back half fender. And I was finishing out this detail, or starting to finish out this detail in the top of the fender that blends into the door. And I realized, I better put this hood on here, see if I need to widen these fenders out a little bit or narrow them up or whatever, which will affect the way that interacts with the door. So I've gone ahead and once again put my little hood handling jig here that I made probably about 4 years ago to be able to take the hood off my truck without struggling. And it's actually being used this time without all the extra flanges that I had on the last couple of projects. This is how I designed it to actually grab this vertical pinch weld that are on most stock hoods. And so that's what's going on there. Using the engine hoist, and I'll pivot that up and bring it over there, and makes it a whole lot easier for one person to deal with a hood. Otherwise, it's could be a calamity, and I've experienced that. Anyway, here's where I'm at, and I'm going to keep on digging. Okay, so I've got the hood on. It's a good thing I did put it on because we had some issues where the fenders were kind of shifted a little bit out of square. The gapping was way off. I had to shift things over a little bit in the front. Trying to now reconcile some of the gaps on the hood and that were not so great. They tapered to almost, well, I'll show you on this side. It hasn't been addressed yet. You can see it tapers to nothing. Well, this comes into plane where it needs to on the door. The door is rolled out as far as it can at the top so that it's flush here and all the way down, so there's nothing out of alignment on the quarter panels. So with these set where they need to be, which took me a little bit of tweaking yesterday to get them just right, and with these rolled in as far as they need to so that they plane off reasonably good, being that they don't actually match the door, this body line has to be eliminated, as you can see, and faded out to nothing in order for this to work. At any rate, that means that this gap right here has to be reconciled by cutting the top of the fender and slowly tapering it to a better result, which is what I have over here. And I spent a little time cutting the top of the fender and then putting a spacer in there, and then continuing to run the abrasive wheel down through there until I got a nice gap that I could weld, and then I welded it back together. Good thing that I decided to stop what I was up to as far as finishing out the top of that other fender, because what I've done so far will have to be cut off as it is and repositioned because of all of this malarkey that I'm dealing with here. So when I first put on the hood, this was a really big gap right here, and even though I had it on there square to the Camaro, just a slight 1/8 of an inch here shift and back and forth. The alignment of the doors, how far back the doors are, the door gaps, all of that has to be taken into consideration. It takes about 60, 70 laps around the car just to see what's going on, and tinkering here and tinkering there. This hood was a little bit out of shape. It had some breaks in the bottom structure that had to be fixed in order for it to arc over on the fenders properly. You see there's a little bit of misalignment right here with the nose piece, but this nose piece is, you can see I did a lot of repair work on it already because it was pretty much shattered. just getting that all up to where it's going to be planed off. Of course, the Bondo work will help with all of that, and that's a fiberglass piece, so it's not a big deal to get this all even with the top of the hood. Hopefully in the end it'll all blend in really well. But that's where I'm at with that. And like I said, I've got to go ahead and get involved with slicing this down here and moving that and re-welding that, and hopefully I can pick up from there. Now, what I like to do with all these body parts at this point is any place where I've got a location, I'll drill an 1/8 of an inch hole or a number 30 hole, and I'll put so it's they'll be able to put a cleco back into that hole to locate everything exactly where I've got it now, so that in the event of once the pieces have to come off and be painted and everything can go back on with relative ease without me having to do this dance, which takes hours and hours and hours to do, and possibly risking any paint work that I've already done in order to locate these pieces back onto the car. I've shown that in a number of other videos where I hang doors and I use clecos to go through the hinges and everything into the body to make sure that I don't have to spend a bunch of time to adjust the doors, and just quickens the process, and just something that I always do. Just I thought I'd mention that. Okay, since I've got the fenders ironed out, so the side's cut and everything's blended over there by the door, I decided, since the hood's on, to tackle the issue of hood supports. On the Camaro, the hood supports are inboard. On the Buick, they mount somewhere down in this location over here with a bracket that's no longer there, and they went to a part right here. There's a bracket right on here, and they're much shorter than the Camaro ones. But I don't have any of those support pistons, and I have a couple of these ones that were for the Camaro. At any rate, what I've done here is I've just popped it on its pickup point here, and I had to find a corresponding spot on the hood itself where they're going to mount. So naturally, this is not something you could compress easily because of this, the strength of it. So what I did was I closed the hood, and one of the advantages of not having an engine in here yet is to be able to get up underneath there and mark the hood on the bottom side where the fully extended piston would land. And then once this mark was established here, I went along this shaft. This is actually a used shaft, so you can see how far it extended with this little wear mark where there's dirt here, and this is all clean. So I measured this distance here, and that tells me what it wants to be when it's compressed. So I went from this mark here, and I subtracted down that amount right here, and this is where the plate needs to mount. Now, this is the plate that normally would mount on the bottom side over there to pick up the Buick Regal pistons that would open up the hood. So I recovered that, cleaned that up, and determined that that needs to mount somewhere in this area right here. Of course, there's nothing here but the hood skin. So one of the first things I had to do was I had to create, this is meant to snap onto a ball, just like that end over there. Well, I just went ahead and drilled it through. I've got one of these nuts with it that has a shaft on it. And it goes through here, and basically that washers just take up the difference. But what you see here is that once it's all the way through, it bottoms out on this plate here once it's tapped in here. So I end up with this not tightening down onto here, and then this is all plastic housing here. I drilled it out to 3/8 of an inch to correspond with this, and so it'll rotate on this without binding up and without having too much slack with this washer in here. Anyway, so next thing was to figure out, where I'm going to mount this to. It has to be a pretty strong spot, and all of this is just flimsy inner liner, and this is also don't want it to attach to the skin or to cause creasing in the skin. Normally it would go into this stamped member right here, which has come welded nuts on the back side right there. So what I did was I have these pieces that I cut out from my fender supports from the Buick that had to be drilled out to accommodate putting the fenders on. over top of the El Camino mount points. So this is some nice 3/32 thick plate, but it's also stamped. So I took this recovered piece here and cleaned one up, and I trimmed it down quite a bit so that I could isolate what I needed. And this plate, I put an edge on it here and here. It's got an edge already on it. But this will mount somewhere's up in this area right here. You can see I've had it tacked up there already to determine if it was the right length. And I've also gone ahead and on the back side here, welded some nuts up. So it's a pretty thick plate, and it's got it's going to hopefully span that, and that won't cause any problems to mount the other end of this piston arm to that. It's a bit convoluted, but it was either that or make another mount over there and figure out where that all had to go relative to the old mount and buy some new pistons. I have quite a few of these pistons left over from projects where I had to buy pistons for the charger hoods and stuff like that. Anyway, I decided to use what I've got sitting here. Okay, so this is what it's looking like with that's popped into the stock location on the what would be the Camaro, and then these plates were added. You can see this is the plate that I recovered that used to be way down there for a small piston, and this is my adaptation so I can through bolt this to this bracket. This is the plate that I made up in order to reconcile the bottom of the hood to the brackets. And so now I can just, it's a pretty heavy hood, just like all of these old hoods are. That's it, drop down. I'll just give it a little lift. Not a struggle because the pistons are holding it up. I'm pretty happy with that. That went a little bit better than I had thought it would. Not that I hoped it would. It went a little bit better than I thought it would. I thought I was going to have to relocate those plates a couple of times because sometimes that's just how it works out. Anyway, we'll see. Once I get everything back in the car, engine-wise, who knows if those pistons will still be clear. They should be, because that's the location they were in the Camaro, and all the engine stuff, heater hoses, air conditioning hoses, computers, everything's routed around the fact that those pistons are in that location. So I'm throwing a little bit of a gamble to the wind, but I'm hoping that it's going to work out for me. All right, I'm over here trying to fit some bumper pieces up, or fit some pieces up so I can mount the bumper, I should say. These are the bumper filler pieces. I only had one with this car. It's made out of ABS plastic, as you can see right here. And I don't really have a problem with it if it was shaped correctly, but all of these, as you can see, they're kind of, you know, caved in, and I guess you could spend some time with a heat gun and get them to push out, but that's the way they look. And adding Bondo to these surfaces is a real pain in the butt because it wants to release off of this surface. So I thought there were two available replacement pieces. One was an ABS piece, the other one was a fiberglass piece. This is the fiberglass piece I opted for. And I thought, well, at least with the fiberglass, I know I could scuff it up, Bondo it if I need to, fix any of the issues with it, and then I'll be fine. It won't come flying off. But as with a lot of molded fiberglass pieces, they come warped and distorted. This is what the passenger side looks like, and this was the good side. Before I started fixing this over here, it was pretty rough. It was twisted up pretty badly. It wouldn't even go on. So you see, with a heat gun and some metal straight edges and some clamps and making some cuts in strategic spots, I managed to straighten it out and get it to fit on there a little bit better than, well, that right there is what it looks like when it came. It was pretty warped up. It was warped across the front, which this one is also. It was warped across the back edge. This is curled too tightly. This has to be released, cut at the top and released, which, this did cause a lot of bubbling here, which, is expected with as much buildup as there is of material in here. By the time I got it heated up, you have to be careful you don't destroy the piece. But Takes a little time, but as with everything in the aftermarket, you know, you're expected to do your share of work once you get the piece. What also is a little bit different here is it's short of where it would screw in. There's a little clips that fit in here, little metal clips that for self-tapping screws that come up from the bottom, which it doesn't reach far back enough. They didn't even include those. This is what the piece looks like right here. It has these little tabs. They only molded it to here, so it doesn't really reach these places here. So now I've got to go back in there and I've got to add something to hold the proper spacing across there, and also an attachment point. So you can see this ABS plastic is brittle at this point. Also, this was weathered and just falling apart. So no use trying to play with this piece. At any rate, that's what I'm up to now, because I got to get that on there to see what kind of where my bumper's going to land, and what kind of mounts I'm going to use based off the extensions of the frame rails there. So just keep digging. All right, so I've gone ahead and got this thing in shape. Now I've had to. The whole reason I'm doing all of this assembly here is because this piece here was pretty shattered when I got the car. I was a little disappointed with how shattered it was based on how much I paid for the parts. But anyway, yeah, can't be a chooser with some of these Buick's stuff, or this Buick stuff is pretty desirable. So I was happy to get it. At any rate, it requires quite a bit of repair. As you can see across the top here, I had to do quite a bit of reconstruction so far. Got that to be in one piece, but now I've got like these ends here are completely blasted out. I've already fixed this headlight socket here with some epoxy. Over here you can see, again, this entire area here is missing, which this is part of the part of this fascia that secures to the fender, so I have to replace that area, and that's what I'm working on over here. Basically, I've riveted some aluminum in to fill the gap. It's a bent over flange. I shrunk it to fit the fender, checked it to fit. Let's see, this is the headlight fixture here, and this slides in right over here. Made sure that both I've got someplace that screws in the side there, and now I've got a place down here, the secondary spot, to screw that to the side of that aluminum. But before I do that, I'm gonna epoxy that all in, and also in order to maintain a nice even opening right here with this piece here, instead of depending on these little fidgety clips here and all of that, I had to figure out a way to secure it anyway, because it's missing where the clips go. I went ahead and put a stack of 2 pieces of 3/16 ABS plastic across here. As you can see that on the side here. And I riveted those to the fiberglass piece. And I went ahead, and these are stainless steel countersunk oval heads actually. And I went right through the whole mass. This plastic is riveted to the fiberglass piece, so it doesn't shuffle around on me. And then I went through the whole mess with this. So that eliminates that, makes a very sturdy connection. And now, like I said, I got to epoxy all of this in. So I'm about to do that. Okay, so that's what both of those things look like I'm busy doing some epoxy work over here and some aluminum flanges I'm epoxying in to finish out that corner. So I've got an attachment point there. I had to do the same thing over here for these missing corners. Run some fiberglass in there, some fiberglass fabric. I also had to, I'm in the process of repairing one of these. It was broke out, this entire area was broke out for this headlight adjuster. It was one that was missing because the entire inside corner was broken out. Fortunately for me, the El Camino Chevelle front end was, the grill and front end section was all crashed and split and broken, and so there's some of these components I was able to actually salvage from that that I could work on here. So just a little bit at a time. I'm currently trying to descale my rusty bumper here, which just rusty on the inside. It's pretty solid for the most part. I wish I could say the same for some of the understructure. I want to use this portion of the understructure. It's a huge understructure that I removed. And you see where the water gets trapped on the bottom side here, and that's pretty much all rotted away here. But what I need out of it is these mounts for the front bumper. So instead of having to fabricate bumper mounts, I really probably just should use that small section there, but we'll see what I end up using. They just freaking pretty much bolt up from here to here and then create a spot. I'm using a needle scaler. I don't know if you've ever seen one of these before. Basically, it's for big rusty jobs. You know, it's pretty loud. I'll just show you. Does a pretty good job. You need ear protection. They're just a bunch of case hardened steel rods that are tied into this air hammer, and you can see it does a pretty good job of knocking most of the scale off and cleaning it up pretty good. So you go from looking like this to looking like this. It's used mostly on big jobs like trailers and, you know, truck frames and stuff like that, where the finish doesn't really require, is not required to look really good, but you get rid of all of that loose stuff. Like I said, you need air protection working with that, but that's where I'm at with this. Okay, after using that needle scaler and some abrasive wheels and stuff like that, and some wire wheels, just went ahead and did a quick cleanup. This is not a thorough cleanup. The backside here, I still have to hit this with a with some some phosphoric acid to neutralize all this rust. But for right now, I just wanted to clean it up so that I'm not, you know, getting big chunks of rust everywhere while I'm working on it. And so those are the minimum I need for mounting the bumper right here. I mean, it was a big sump bumper from here all the way across. But anyway, this is all I really need is these central pieces here to connect to a plate. So I abbreviated it, both got rid of the centerpiece and the ends, which were pretty rotted anyway. So anyway, it saves me from having to make a bracket, and it rectifies it because this is nice and flat straight across. And so be moving on with this. All right, I'm getting ready to move this bumper into place, and rather than reinvent the wheel, I've just gone ahead and taken these 5-mile-per-hour pistons out of the frame rails of the Buick, and because they've already got mounting plates on them and extension, I was going to cut it off here and then put a fixed piece in there, but I think I'll just go ahead and leave this plate and everything and come out with a mounting point that just attaches to this plate. Why reinvent the wheel, as they say? Everything's right there for me. So I just got to see how it mates up with the existing frame rail ends on the Camaro. Once I get it up under there, who knows? I may have to end up cutting them off anyway based on what's under there. But I've got it up on these body stands. You know, these things really come in handy. You can make them up pretty easy. You could use larger, you know, tubing. These are ones that I inherited, so I just left them as is. They could stand to be at least, you know, 1.25 inches or 1.5 inches tubings to make them a little more rigid. I've seen guys use, you know, heavy brake rotors, you know, as a base. You don't have to make this fancy setup over here. Although these are nice because they have a little leveling feet if you're doing more precise work. These little through bolts here are through some weld nuts, so that you can tip this thing in any direction if you're trying to do something a little bit more serious as far as lining anything up. The main thing I've discovered over the years of using these, a lot of guys will use a round tube and then a larger round tube and then just put a weld nut and then a bolt, and then they'll put a handle on it like this, weld it up so that they can loosen it. Problem is if you're trying to do something precise with a round tube set up like that, is when you go to tighten it, what happens is as you rotate in against the tube, not only mars the tube, your vertical tube, which over time will make it harder to move up and down, but it also, as you rotate it, if you're trying to keep a precise height measurement, as you tighten it, it'll start to climb up with the rotation. It'll climb up, maybe 1/16 to 1/8 of an inch, but it's enough to screw you up that you got to keep resetting it. So what I've done with these, and you can't see it here, is this is quite a bit larger, this tubing, than this tubing here. I think this is 5/8. This is a 3/4 tube, I think. And inside, I've taken a piece of sheet metal, and I've run it down like a tab, and just welded one end. So it acts like a flapper. So when you tighten it, it tightens against this little tab, and the tab moves up against this bar to secure the height. That way, what happens is you don't get that rotational climb that you would get if you just put this even against a piece of square tubing. That rotation of tightening this little bolt over here will end up making it climb up the hill a little bit. Anyway, that's enough prattling on for me. On with the work. Okay, so that's what it's looking like. Unfortunately, those two pistons didn't line up with the frame rails. Frame rails were off by maybe 3/4 of an inch. Otherwise, they would have slid right in. But that's the way it goes. I suppose I could spend some time and reposition them, but it's just not worth it. I'll just cut the brackets off and make my own. It's short enough distance in there so that it won't be an issue. Anyway, that's where I'm at with this, and I'm going to leave it there for this video. And I'd like to thank anybody who's watching and following along. And I will see you on the next one.